Hello guys, we are ready to start our first set of notes. This particular set of notes will look like this. This looks very similar to your workbook. I don't know if you ever used a workbook in Geometry or Algebra 1, but you'll notice that this is set up pretty much the same. So make sure that you come to Open House and pick up your workbook so that you can follow along and you don't have to use your own paper. It'll be provided for you, okay? All right, so first thing we're going to talk about is domain and range. We will talk about this every single unit, all the time, for what will seem like forever throughout this course. So if you don't get it this time, you'll have a bunch of other times to learn it, but the sooner that you understand it, the easier your life will be. All right, so what is domain? Okay. Domain is your input, okay, and it's always your X values. So just what is domain? That's what it is. Range, you guessed it, it's your output or your Y values. So how do I keep this straight? X and Y, think about that alphabetically. X comes before Y. Think about domain and range. D comes before R. So the first letters of the set match up. Okay? All right, so what are the domain and range of the function? And we're going to write it in two different notations. So we'll talk about those notations in a minute. But first, anytime I see domain and range, to make my life easier, I am going to graph it. Okay? You should have some sort of app downloaded to graph. If you're on a Chromebook, you already have a graphing calculator on there, school issued. If you have your own Chromebook, get in touch with me and we might be able to get it on yours. There's also the app Calculate 84 or Desmos. Okay, I like Desmos, so I do y equals, there's my absolute value, x minus 4. Close it out. That's what it looks like. So notice it starts right here at 4 on the x-axis and goes on. If you're doing this on a graphing calculator, you might need to know where the absolute value button is. So I'll help you out. When you go to y equals, if you go to alpha y equals, alpha window, just kidding. ABS stands for absolute value. So that's where you would find it, x minus 4. And when you hit graph, hey, that's the same picture. Okay? All right. So for notes references, I'm always going to sketch myself a little picture to remind myself what that looked like. Just good note-taking skills so that if I ever look back, I remember that that's what I was looking at. And domain is how wide is it? So where does the graph start? Remember, the arrow means it goes on forever, ever, ever, ever to the left. So it's going this way forever. Okay? We call that negative infinity. Forever and ever and ever. Well, we also notice that it's going this way forever. So that's called positive infinity. Anytime we write an infinity symbol, we close it off with a parenthesis. And this notation is known as interval notation. Okay. In Set Builder, for domain, we say all real numbers. Okay. Range is from bottom to top. So always do the smallest number to the largest number. So smallest number here on the Y, on Y, so notice that Y is actually 0. So if I think about that point, That point is 4, 0. The y value is 0. And then it goes up forever. Again, forever just is infinity in math language. I told you to always close out your infinities with parentheses. So let's make that little note. Always close infinity with parentheses. Okay. Now, notice that there's an actual point at 4, 0. Therefore, we close it off with a bracket. So bracket when there is a point there. And when I say point, I'm talking about labeling it like x, y. All right, that's interval notation. Set notation, this is where it gets fun. Notice it starts at 0 and then gets big. So we say the set, you're going to hear me say, mathematicians are lazy. We are lazy because we don't want to write full sentences. So that brace means the set y such that, remember, shorthand, such that y is greater than or equal to 0. So I'm going to write that out as a sentence. I'm not the fastest writer, so I apologize. Okay, so that is called set builder notation. I encourage you in Canvas to scroll to the bottom of today's lesson and you will see a vocab slide. If you click on that slide, any of those letters, or sorry, any of those words are attached to their definition. So just to help you out a little bit. All right, next. Let's see if we can do B real quick. So I challenge you to pause for just a second and try it on your own and then hit play and see if you got it right. All right, I'm going to go to my graph. I'm going to type this one in. For time's sake, I'm only going to type it in here. If you are using a graphing calculator, feel free. I feel like this one's pretty self-explanatory how to type it in your graph, so you shouldn't have any problems. It crosses here, 0, 0, and 3, 0. And the top, this is why I like Desmos, is I just had to touch it to see that that point is 1.5, 4.5. So I'm going to put that there just to remind myself. All right. So domain here. Again, even though it's pointing down, remember that it is going on forever and ever. Here's a hint. In this section, the domain will always be negative infinity to infinity. If you're talking about interval notation. If you're talking about set notation, you're just going to say all real numbers. Okay. Your domain is always your x. So sometimes our book writes it weird and uses x. Okay. Range is where things can get a little different. Okay. Bottom. Where's the bottom of this graph? Well, it looks to me like it's going down and down and down and down forever and ever. We call that negative infinity. Then we want to know, where's that tip-top y value? Well, the tip-top y value is 4.5. It is a point, so I close that off with the bracket. When you are practicing these problems, you will get it wrong if you do not use the correct parenthesis and bracket for interval notation. Okay, so what does that look like for set builder notation? It is the set Y such that you always start it that way. Y, notice this time it's going down. Down is little, so less than or equal to. I put equal to because there's an actual point there. 4.5. Okay, this ends this video, so you try it next on the playlist.